Good evening, everyone.
Good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon.
Hello.
All right, give us just a moment here. We're here in the boardroom. Just give
Hello.
us a minute. How are you all doing?
Doing
Good.
well, thank you. Hope your summer
Awesome.
went well.
Awesome. Okay. Just setting up all of our technology here. Welcome. Of course, we're going to get started. Our first meeting for the new academic year. Now, what we're going through right now, because we definitely do not have a quorum right now, so just give us a minute. Diane is in doing the attendance. Hopefully, by the time she's done with the attendance and I'm monitoring the screen, we will have a quorum to where we can have a nice, productive meeting this evening, because we do have a lot to share out. While Diane is doing the attendance, just so that everyone will, those of you that are here virtually, here in the boardroom with me, is our Mr. Collins, one of our returning member. Mr. Collins is here in the boardroom along with myself and Diane, and then joining us is also Mr. Turney, our Deputy Superintendent, Chief of Schools, that if we can get the quorum, we will be going through our legislative updates with compliance, particularly around some of the academic House bills, as well as our Library Media Service Manager, Mr. Nolan Rowe. And then online, along with you virtually, is also Mr. Bruce Harris, one of our attorneys that is coming in for us this afternoon, because Lisa Cremona, who normally joins us, is unavailable. So Bruce will be helping us out this evening. So thank you, Bruce, for joining the group. We definitely appreciate it.
You're welcome. Looking forward to it. I hope you get a quorum.
I hope so, Bruce.
If we don't get a quorum, can we reach out to all of the school board members, as well as the various organizations that have appointed people, and let them know we need someone to show up at our meetings?
That has always have been the intent. And, you've reached out, and as we close the end of the year, everyone was excited about returning for the new year, knowing that we will have a lot in front of us. So we will, once we go through the elections tonight, then we will move forward in regards to next step. So I'm just watching the screen because I'm also admitting our guests in as well.
Oh, terrific.
I just let Randy in.
How many do you need for a quorum, and how close are you?
I think it's 8. We're 2 shy, we need 8. Dr. Diaz is on, right?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thought I saw Dr. Diaz. That's you, Dr. Diaz, with that unknown name there?
Yeah, that's me at the bottom.
Okay. That's Dr. Diaz, yeah. One more. We have 2 that said they were going to be joining virtually, so we're going to give them a minute, and hopefully they will join.
I'm here, just FYI.
Okay, thank you. That's Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You did have Mr. Smith, right? You'd already had him checked. Let me see your list, who you have checked. Let me just do a run through real quick. Hopefully I've missed someone where we could move on. Okay, I don't have Mara. Mara's not on, is she? Dr. Coleman, Farrell, she said she was joining virtually. She's not on. Mr. Collins is with us. Dr. Diaz is with us. Laura's here. Rachel. Randy's here. Is Sherelle on? She's not.
I don't see Sherelle. Charmaine had said she was going to.
Charmaine indicated she was going to be here virtually. She's not on. Mr. Smith is on. Okay, Charmaine just joined. Okay.
So we now have a quorum, right?
Wait a minute. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You need one more? Okay.
Christina's
We're good?
on.
Okay, Christina's, okay. All right, we're good. So, again, good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. It's not 6 yet. I want to welcome everyone to our first Academic Advisory Committee group here for this upcoming school year. Hopefully, this is going to be a fantastic year. I'm not going to say hopeful. This is going to be a fantastic year to where each meeting we will be able to move forward with our quorum of members. I do have, and also on your calendar invites are the attachments in terms of how we would move through this evening. Here on the agenda, I'm actually moving through as well. We were going to go ahead. You see, we have our public comments. We do not have anyone here currently in the boardroom with us for public comments. Then after public comments, I'm going to have the update from the CAO and the review of policy and the election of officers. And Mr. Harris is going to assist me just as a reminder to the review of our policies and the elections of officers. Then we're going to go directly into the big bucket of our conversation here this evening, which is going to be around the end of the year FY22 academic updates. And particularly, I want to, in the end of the year FY22 academic updates, that's a lot around data points, but I'm going to start as it pertains to the legislative updates and the implementation, if that's okay with the group, because those are very pressing issues that we're dealing with here as a system and as a state. So we're going to just navigate in this space, and if we don't get to, say, the opening of school updates, which we should, and the data points in regards to how we ended our academic year last year, then we can talk about bringing that back at our next meeting in September. But as Laura, as you sent the email, there was a lot around where we, as it pertains to, all of the legislative updates and us being in compliance come July 1 and at the start of the academic year. And that will be a lot of the focus this evening, if that is okay.
That sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, I'll go ahead and turn it over right now. Laura, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I want to thank everyone for coming and for enabling us to have a quorum. It's wonderful to hear and see you all. Sorry that my video is not working right now. But welcome to the new year. And if we can go ahead, I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:56 p.m. And can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
None.
Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand or say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. And as Dr. Sheffield mentioned, there's no public comment. So if we would go ahead and go on to Dr. Sheffield, you're up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Laura. And again, there is no public comments, and Diane has made notes that the minutes from our last meeting from May 9th has been accepted and approved. So at this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Harris, Bruce Harris, one of our attorneys. He's going to come forward, and he's just going to do a very high-level overview to remind us of policy 1.09 as it pertains to the governance of our superintendent academic advisory committee. As you know, we do at the beginning of each meeting at the start of the new year. Most importantly, this is important as we talk around the election of officers. The election of officers, starting around with the chairperson for this committee. So Bruce, I'll turn it over to you just for a great overview for us.
Sure. Welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I was involved with the original legal review that established this committee, and in fact was the attorney who sat in on the first few meetings of the committee. A couple of you know me, most of you probably don't, but I'm an associate general counsel with the district. And policy 109 is another one I've been involved with for legal review several times. And what's relevant tonight is the first meeting of the school year to have an organization meeting, which means you choose your officers, you vote for both chair and vice chair. I had a preliminary question as to the chair. Has the chair served 4 years or more consecutively?
I've lost track, to be honest. I'm not sure.
Diane, were you able to determine that?
We did check, Bruce. We went as far back because it's 4 consecutive years. And in 2018, at that time, she was serving as chair, so she would have served as 4 consecutive years. We didn't need to go any further back because that would have been the 4 years.
Okay, so unfortunately, Ms. Feldman, under the policy 109, if a person serves 4 consecutive years, they don't get to run again the next year, absent the board having approved in advance that the person could run again. So anybody who wants to run, you can either nominate someone or you can nominate yourself.
So we saying at this time, Mr. Harris?
Yes.
So at this time, we're saying that the floor is open for nominations for chair for the Superintendent Academic Advisory Committee.
I would like to nominate Charmaine.
Okay, and is that Dr. Diaz?
It is.
Okay. Dr. Diaz is nominating Charmaine Postal.
Any other nominations? Again, one can nominate oneself.
Hello, how are you? Mr. Bruce, I have a question regarding that. I currently serve as the chair of the DDEC. That is contingent if the DDEC elects me as a chair next Thursday, but I currently serve under the capacity as the DDEC chair.
There's no limitation on how many committees you can be chair of. If you want to take that on, I mean, that's your choice.
I accept the nomination. I accept the nomination.
Are there any other, thank you, Ms. Postal. Are there any other nominations for chair of the Superintendent Academic Advisory Committee?
I'd like to close the nomination at one said name.
And the nominations are closed, and you should take a vote. All in favor of Ms. Postal being the chair this upcoming year?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
There are no opposes.
let's vote. Now we take nominations for vice chair.
So the floor nomination is open for vice chair of the Superintendent Academic Advisory Committee.
Can we nominate Laura Feldman? Can she be a vice chair?
Yes,
I accept the nomination. Thank you, Charmaine.
That's an amazing job.
Okay.
any other nominations?
I'd like to close the
Okay.
nominations on that one said name.
I'm sorry, did someone say close the nominations?
Yes, Mr. Collins here in the boardroom indicated he would like to close the nominations on that said name.
All right, then take a vote. All in favor of Ms. Feldman being vice chair for this year? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Vote was unanimous in favor. Congratulations to both of you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris, for leading us through the nomination of our officers, our chairperson, Charmaine Postal, for this year as chairperson, Laura Feldman as vice chair. Thank you, and thank you to all of the members for, again, continuing wanting to serve with us and making a difference. And what you're also going to hear this afternoon, is in regards to how this committee is going to be working alongside myself and the team through many of the unique pieces. I'm not going to call them challenges. There's just unique pieces that we are going to comply with as we continue to maximize the instructional opportunities for our students. So I'm just looking forward to working with both Charmaine, Laura, and the entire group as we navigate in some of this. And Charmaine doesn't know it yet, but I'll follow up with her because we have received over the weekend soliciting, from the state in regards to some nominees as it pertains to parents wanting to serve on the committee around some of these pieces. While Mr. Turney go on and lead us through the legislative update, I'm going to run upstairs. Actually, I'm going to pull it up here, and I'll be able to share more of that information with you. So what we're going to do at this time, as I indicated earlier, to try to move through some of the key pieces this evening, if it's okay with you all, and Charmaine, I would like to start with Mr. Turney around the legislative update. Then Nolan and Bruce is going to also talk around some of the information as it pertains to library and media services. Those are really two huge, big bucket pieces for us. So are we okay with that?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Turney, and we're going to go directly into the legislative updates and implementation. Yes, just give me a minute. I'm going to pull the slides up. And there you go. And you turn your mic on, I'll turn mine off.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ed Tierney, Deputy Superintendent, Chief of Schools. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and nice to see you both face-to-face and virtually. So we're going to talk about legislative compliance, the three House bills, 1467, 1557, and then the FLDOE rule. This is basically the same presentation that I gave to principals in our preschool meeting in order to help them prepare to get their teachers prepared to the implementation of this legislation. So the principals worked with three different groups of people in order to make sure that we are compliant with the legislation and then staying true to our school district's mission to educate, affirm, and inspire our students while maintaining the academic freedom that the teachers deserve and is codified in our agreement with the Classroom Teachers Association. So we're going to start with the teachers. The teachers are going to understand the instructional statement that we have put out in a bulletin. And that instructional statement, the gist of which is we are going to teach standards in an age-appropriate manner, and we are going to facilitate discussions in a way that causes and teaches students to think. So we're going to teach standards, it's going to be age-appropriate, and we're going to facilitate conversations in a manner that causes and teaches students to think. And that is the umbrella, our mission statement, and that instructional statement is the umbrella under which all decisions will be made, and that we will be 100% sure that we're within compliance and able to defend anything that happens in any of our schools. So that is the beginning, or that's kind of the overarching philosophy regarding the implementation of the legislation. We spent the summer, literally 7 days a week over the summer, reviewing books in media centers or media centers lists to see if we had books that would run afoul of legislation. Additionally, we reviewed all of the content on Blender that would be pushing out to schools. We made basically no revisions to Blender. We are already in compliance with the House bills and the rule, and we reviewed just under 2.5 million books over the summer, and we found 13 that we determined should be available to students in our schools, but in a separate place that only 4th and 5th grade students could access. So these were about gender identity, and they're still in our libraries, they're still available to students. They are just in a section that K-3 students could not access per the legislation. So our adjustments, our instructional adjustments in order to comply with the rule and the House bills, none to our curriculum, none to the instructional materials we put out via our website, and I did not do the math, whatever 13 divided by 2.5 million is, that is the totality of the adjustments we made. So the teachers are going to check the list that we created. If they have any of those 13 books that we said had to be moved to a 4th and 5th grade area, they would move those books, or the media centers, excuse me, would move those books in the media center, the media specialist would, and the teachers would take them out of any 4th and 5th grade classroom. They're going to look at their books in their media, or in their classroom libraries with a checklist to see if there are any other books that we had not seen that would run afoul of legislation. Again, we looked at 2.5 million over the summer, so I don't anticipate there being books in those classroom libraries that might fall into that category, but they're going to check their libraries to make sure there were no other books, and then they're going to be familiar with our instructional philosophy, which is teach the standards, age-appropriate manner, facilitate discussions. So that is the major kind of implementation and the rocks we had to move over the summer to get the teachers prepared. And we think once they get through just kind of going through those books in their classroom libraries, we're going to be business as usual, because we believe we have been teaching standards in an age-appropriate manner and facilitating discussions, and that's why our students did well on the standardized test. That's where we got good news coming back over the summer, and that's why we're a high-performing 8-rated district, because of the quality of the education that the teachers are providing in those classrooms. The media specialists, the second group that the principals work with, would receive any books indicated on a teacher checklist that a teacher was concerned about in their classroom library, and either review it or send it up to this building to review. And the elementary school media specialist would create a 4th and 5th grade area in the elementary school media center, just in case there were any of those 13 books that we deemed had to only be available to 4th and 5th graders. And the media specialist will also sign off on any instructional materials that the principal is purchasing. The example I gave for that is if a school gets a grant, the principal says, I am going to purchase this book with the grant money, and the whole school or grade level or content area is going to read this book. The media specialist has to sign off on that, because that's an instructional material. If a classroom teacher brings in a book for his or her classroom library, that's not. But if the principal were to buy one, that would be an instructional material. The media specialist would have to sign off on that. And the third group were the bookkeepers. And the bookkeeper, the only thing the bookkeeper has to do is develop a process that ensures the media specialist is signing off on any instructional material. So back to the same example I just gave, the principal gets a grant, is going to buy a book for the school, for a grade level or content area to read. When he or she asks the bookkeeper, order this book for everyone, the bookkeeper has to realize this is an instructional material. I need to have the media specialist sign off on it. So that is the 3 areas that the principals worked with to start off the school year in order to ensure compliance with legislation and the House rule indicated on the first of that slide. And this is basically the same information, just presented a different way. So our books being pulled off the shelves, we're asked that all the time. Okay, the books of the 2.49 million, all of them were returned basically perfectly fine to instruct, other than the 13 that we deemed were not able to be available to K-3. So nothing is being pulled off shelves, nothing is being banned, nothing is being really changed other than generally a shelf in an elementary school media center, where those 13 books might be 14 now. There might have been one more removed, so K-3 students are not able to access them. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question with regard to parental objections to curricular materials. parents have always been able to raise concerns through the administration and to have materials or books reviewed. Do any of these laws provide for parents to sue either the teacher or the school district?
You know, when the legislation was first being created, we heard that individual teachers would be subject to being sued for this, and that caught our attention. That did not come about when the legislation was passed. There is no mechanism for that to happen. We still have the policy that allows parents to protest instructional materials and books, so that policy still exists and we'll follow that. But teachers, there's nothing in the legislation that makes a teacher personally liable for that.
Okay. Is the school or the school district, are they liable if a parent objects to materials, or do they have to go through the internal process, which is administrative in nature?
We're going to run through that internal process that we've had in place in policy. Now, ultimately, is the district liable? I'd say probably the district is ultimately liable should we not follow the law. But we have the policy in place to support or address parental concerns.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Attorney?
I believe one of these laws said that it was illegal for a teacher to teach something that would cause a student distress or that would tell a student that they are personally responsible for things that were done by members of their race. I'm just wondering how the district has addressed that issue and what instruction teachers have been given.
Yeah, Dr. Diaz, I appreciate you bringing that up. That is an important point. So, and I can't quote the law, but it was basically have an individual feel guilty or responsible for something that people previously had done. We've said a number of times, and we'll continue to say, you know, one, back to the instructional philosophy, standards, age appropriate, facilitate discussions. But there is no expectation or possibility that we're going to teach about the Holocaust, teach about slavery, and not have people have a physical and emotional reaction to that. And there is no expectation on the part of the district that people would present that in a manner that people wouldn't react to emotionally. So we've not found an example of a lesson or a book that would purposefully make a child feel guilty for something someone else did in history. So we've not seen any examples that might lead us to have a problem with that. But there is no, like I said, we're not going to put out opinion neutral lessons on, you know, some of the horrors that have happened in this country or the world and say, it happened, you decide. I mean, there's emotional reactions to that, and wrong is wrong, and we're not going to shy from either of those two things.
Well, I appreciate hearing that, Ed, because while teachers are generally trained to show both sides of an issue, I don't think there are two sides to the Holocaust or two sides to slavery. There are exceptions to that general rule. And if you teach something truthfully, you can never predict exactly how students might react emotionally. The only way to avoid it is simply not to teach it. And that's my concern, that the district is backing teachers up when they follow the curriculum, because I suspect the real motive behind some of these acts at Tallahassee is to get teachers to avoid certain topics. And when people are scared or when people are unsure, the best way to protect yourself is don't get anywhere near it. So I'm glad to hear what you are saying, and I presume teachers will be supported if they are teaching according to the 3 precepts that you've outlined.
Absolutely.
Laura, you have a
Thank you,
question?
President. Yeah.
Yes, I do. I noticed that there's a new, I don't know, slogan, if you will, which is the educate, affirm, and inspire. And I was hoping you could go into more detail as to exactly what affirm will mean in the schools.
Are you talking about, Laura, as it pertains to the legislative updates?
Well, sort of, yes. So does that mean that you're affirming, you know, so if a student is, wants to use or the parent state that the student wants to use a preferred name or preferred pronouns. Is this what you mean by affirming? Or is there something else that you're referring to when you use the word affirm?
Okay, well, Laura, if, with the committee, we could hold that question for a moment, and let's
Certainly.
go through the legislative piece, then we could come back to talk about some of those other pieces. Ed said he'll be more than happy to talk on that piece. So if we can go through the legislative piece.
Okay, so let's go from the direction of the legislative piece. So
Okay.
in the understanding of what this, I understand the statement to facilitate discussions, but will that mean that there will be discussions about what various families look like, for lack of a better word, of how, families are different depending upon who they are and all the rest? Or are there going to be discussions about, will there be instruction? Because we talk about it, I believe the law focuses on gender identity. So will there be instructions as to what boys will do or girls will do in the classroom, or which bathrooms to go to, even in terms of all of that? How will that be dealt with in terms of this legislation?
So the affirm portion, for the purpose of this conversation, we recognize, and I kind of presented this, and we didn't make a lot of big changes based on this legislation because we were generally doing that anyway. It's very easy for me to say that. We recognize that there are students who feel targeted, feeling marginalized, feel left out based on this. So the mechanics of implementing this, my opinion of that implementing, doesn't matter to a student who all of a sudden feels either targeted or victimized or left behind that. So the affirm is to address some of those feelings that you brought up, Ms. Feldman, to make sure that every student is seen and valued and heard. So that is in there for a reason.
Great.
It really ties into the new strategic plan that was just adopted, and that's not a purpose for this conversation, but it might be worth having someone come down to talk through that strategic plan in the near future, because that is a big part of the strategic plan that the school board just adopted, and we're really think is outstanding or proud of. As far as the instruction goes, you asked about how that will be instructed, and again, that goes back to the standards, right? What is in the standards are instructed, and that we do see some of those things in the standards later on, but as long as we stay within that instructional philosophy on teaching standards in an age-appropriate manner, facilitating discussions, they'll be fine. The students will be heard and educated.
Okay, but will there be just the instruction, for example, defining he, she, and they? Because isn't that part of gender identity?
I can't tell you that specifically at what, if any, grade we get to that in the standards.
And then Laura, and in fairness, I mean, some of this, we're still working through. That's why I didn't want us to, because that's another conversation. So as we move.
If we can't talk about they as being a neutral gender process, then I think we also cannot speak about he or she. And that's my point.
Okay, point taken. Charmaine? Charmaine, Dr. Diaz, either of you had your hands up?
I'm sorry, I did have my hands up. I was just going to say, I'm not sure if Mr. Tierney had finished his conversation. We're at 6:21 and we still have two other items. If he can if we can hold the questions and let him finish his presentation and then maybe take questions at the end.
Okay, thank you. So with Mr. Attorney, that was from the kind of feedback and guidance that was provided through the teachers, as he indicated, not just through our teachers, but also our district staff, anyone that's holding an instructional certificate. We have these e-learning courses that's taking us through in regards to what the expectations are and the kind of guidance that's being provided, to where we are making certain that as we're providing and supporting teachers, we're all on the same page and everyone is holding to the law. To come alongside with around the classroom libraries is also our library media services, meaning those books that are within our media centers on our campus. That's the second part to this. And that's why Nolan and Bruce joined us this evening as well. So what I'll do, I'm just going to have Nolan, I think, I'll start with Bruce. Bruce will just take us through the work that we have done around library media services. Then, of course, Bruce, myself, Nolan, and Diana Snyder, we've just spent a lot of time together these past few weeks trying to clean up as it pertains to the policies. We have 3 policies that we'll be bringing to the board on September the 7th to align with around all of the legislative updates that will put our library media services in compliance with all of the required legislative updates. Bruce, I'll turn it over to you at this time.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to talk mainly about House Bill 1467 as it relates to library media, and some of it also relates to reading list materials. Well, who makes the selection? It's done by the certified school district employee who has a media specialist certificate. And also, after January 1 of this year, DOE is supposed to come up with training, well, actually by January 1. So those specialists need to complete that training before books can be purchased or donated or accepted by library media specialists for the collection. Right now, they don't need the training because it's not available. Now, there are other provisions on selection and who's involved, and this one is very important because the proposal is that it's going to involve you. This is only a proposal. It may change, but there's a provision in the statute that there has to be consultation with stakeholders. Well, who are the better stakeholders than the members of this committee? Because you're an academic committee, you're not supposed to help select instructional materials, but these are library media materials. So any stakeholder within the community can provide input on this. And when there's going to be a proposed purchase or obtaining of materials, there's a website that's going to, and all this is going to be posted on each school's website, these procedures. There's a website that's going to indicate list of books that are expected to be purchased. You will be receiving an email from Library Media Services telling you about this posting and that you can look at it and the new materials that are being considered. And you'll be provided that link and what the deadline is for responding. Now, anyone which includes beyond you, but any stakeholder who has any questions or concerns will be provided with this email address to send the comments to, which will be reviewed by District Library Media Services for consideration. Now, because of time frames, if it's a book fair purchase, they need to know within 72 hours. But for any other materials, the postings will be up for 2 weeks, which means you may not be able to discuss this at a meeting if you don't have a meeting scheduled during that time frame. But you as an individual can provide feedback to the committee, to the library media people, if you so desire. Now note, if you're not having a meeting where this is being discussed, you cannot discuss it with other committee members because of sunshine issues. And you've heard of the liaison issue too, where you can't discuss it with someone else who tells you what another committee member is thinking about it. So you got to be careful not to discuss it with other committee members, but you can let other people know about it and they can provide comments if they want. And if there is a meeting, of course, you can discuss it in public as a committee if you have time for that. But because of these tight deadlines, there may not be time. So is there any, and then I should mention the statute also has various criteria for selections, which will be indicated in the procedures, such as it can't have any pornography, be harmful to minors, it's got to be suited to student needs and their ability to comprehend, it must be appropriate for the grade level, and so forth. There are several types of criteria that are set forth in the procedures, or the proposed procedures, and other factors that the school media specialist will be looking at. So I'm being brief, and I need to know if there are any questions on that. But we thought of you people as being the best, resource as stakeholders to put this out initially, although other people can see it and they'll see the procedures on the school's website. And if they periodically check, they'll see list of books, they can make comments as well. And Dr. Sheffield, there'll be once.
Laura, I think you have a question, Bruce.
No, I can't see that.
Yes, Laura.
Hi, yes, quick question. So there's different circumstances that you mentioned of things that are not allowed.
There's some background noise.
It might be on Charmaine's.
Okay.
So my question is the different conditions that you mentioned that are not allowed, we'll have that list in front of us when we get to review it, right?
What conditions do you mean? You mean the sunshine issue or?
No. You were listing, it can't be,
You can't have pornography and all that?
right, that
That's
part.
part of the procedures that we're going to be proposing. They'll be on every school's website. And Dr. Sheffield, I assume you can email those to the committee members once it's at least gone through leadership. Am I correct?
Bruce, and that's what I wanted to say, because I think someone typed in the chat box to ask, could they have a copy of the slides pertaining to what you're reviewing? There is no slides on what Bruce is talking tonight. We will be able to share that with you at a later time. And reason being is that you're getting a sneak preview in regards to the board workshop around these 3 policies. And this is exactly the language that Bruce is speaking of that will be within those 3 policies of the workshop that we do on September the 7th. So once we workshop, we come back for development to get the feedback from the board, then it goes through adoption. Once we go through final adoption, then of course, Bruce definitely will invite you back to celebrate that everything has been accepted that you're explaining tonight. So Randy, I think that was you. That's why it's not any slides, because this is what we will be proposing to the board as our next step, if that made sense. Correct, Bruce?
I'm sorry, you cut off.
I said, no, that is correct. What you're sharing is what we're proposing.
What we're proposing at this
Exactly.
point.
So we didn't want to put that out there in any slides or anything until we have taken this to leadership, taken it to the board and workshop on September the 7th. So I strongly will encourage I'm going to ask you right now, need your help. If you will, watch the board workshop on the 7th. As we go through the board, you will hear the discussion from the board members, so that when we come back, this will probably need to be a carryover for our September meeting, just to get the feedback from the board and what Mr. Harris is making reference to.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, I think it's a great idea, and it's very exciting. Thank you.
And then also, another part to that will be, is that we received late on Friday. I will share this with Ms. Postal. I was just waiting for tonight after the election. I will share it with her. We'll send it to her first thing tomorrow morning. It's in regards to where, as it pertains to House Bill 1467, to where the state is calling for a parent work group member to help develop the online training program for our school library media centers. So we have until October the 19th to make a recommendation on if we would like someone from this group or someone from the district, from a parent standpoint, to participate and attend in these state trainings to help the development of this online training for our library media services. I'm hoping that we can get someone from this awesome group. State will cover reimbursement charges and so forth because there will be some travel. But I will share this with Ms. Postal first thing tomorrow morning, and then we would just need to come back together prior to the 19th because we'll have to submit the name to the state.
Thank you for that information. This is Randy. Do you have the time of the board workshop on the 7th?
I'll look it up, Randy. I'll get that for you. I'll come back with that time. I'll put it there in the chat. I want to say 3, but I don't want you to quote me. I need to see exactly where we fall. What's the lineup?
Okay, great. I appreciate it because I will attend. Thank you.
And just so you know, they sometimes have closed meetings beforehand.
Yes.
And it's only an estimate when the workshop will start.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. And then I'll just ask if Nolan, our awesome library media service manager that has been sitting here, he spent some time with the library media specialists this summer through the symposium, providing them the guidance and training and so forth to see is there anything that he wants to add from library media services.
No. But thank you guys for having me here.
That was it, Nolan. I think Nolan is like, he's been dealing and working through this. And, you know, right now, I mean, you heard a lot in regards to the work that has been done. You know, where Mr. Turney talked around the classroom libraries. You've heard here, the second part was around the library media and the books and so forth there. And then what we're doing with those policies, and you all know the policies is all putting us in compliance with everything that must occur. And I think Mr. Turney did talk about the work that we did on the front end over the summer with the curriculum through our platform, how we have taken and went through every single piece of our lessons and so forth, making certain and working alongside with legal and working with library and media service agents, those that had the certification, to make certain that, again, those pieces were aligned. And not here or there, you know, this year we're starting our best standards in, you know, Ks 3 through 12, so we had to start over because we started K2 last year. So it was an opportune time where we'd already started rewriting many of our resources and so forth. So, you know, on the curriculum side, you know, we're just continuously monitoring, working together with the team that you see here, working with our legal counsels. They have just been phenomenal, and working with other districts, using each other's as thought partners, and just doing the best we can with what we have. And I can say, you know, we've been here, I think this is day 4. So I'm going to say so far, so good. It's definitely, I'll continue to say, it will continue to be a work in progress. So Charmaine, I'll turn it over to you for any additional questions. Charmaine?
I thought that I was trying to leave out of the area. I'm stuck in a actual place because it's storming, so I had to seek shelter in a place. I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
No, I said, you know, we were just going through the remainder of where we are with the legislative pieces. So I was turning it over to you as chair to follow up with the additional questions from the group.
I will follow up with any questions. I didn't have any additional questions on my end. I think it was very clear what was presented before us. If there's anyone else who had questions that I'm not clear, you're asking me to follow up with the group's questions?
Now, I was turning it over to you if you wanted to lead a discussion with the group.
Oh, the floor is open. If anyone have any questions regarding any of the presentations or any comments that was made, it's open. If there aren't any questions, we can move right along with the agenda. I didn't have a specific discussion for this because this wasn't given to me in the, in advance for me to have a specific discussion. But if any one of the committee members had a discussion that they would like to, bring forth, we could entertain it at this moment. Absolutely.
Mr. Diaz, your mic is muted.
I said I would like to add something, not specific to a given legislative change, but about the overall climate in our state. The efforts that have been made to tinker with curriculum, and they've been given labels like the Parental Freedom Act, things of that nature. I don't think that refers to all parents in the state. I believe it refers to some parents in the state. And there's a school of thought that seems to predominate in Tallahassee that the schools of Florida cannot afford to teach the full story of this country. In particular, the stories of African Americans, Latinos, immigrants, and other groups, because when you start telling those stories, there are going to be pieces of those stories which are not exactly complementary to the American image. However, in my personal and academic view, education cannot be indoctrination. And you can indoctrinate either overtly or covertly. When you start silencing voices that belong in the curriculum, you are in fact affecting what students ultimately think. So without getting too explicit, we need to think about which voices are being promoted in the state and which voices are being stifled. And as chairman of the Hispanic Education Coalition, I don't think that the voices of Hispanics or the role of Hispanics in American history are being particularly supported.
Great point. I did have, that's a great point. Thank you for that. If anyone want to chime in or add on to what Mr. Diaz said, please do so. But I wanted to go back to, Mr. Give me 1 second, Corey, to Mr. Bruce's proposal or what's forthcoming before the body. Will we get that through staff, Ms. Schaefer?
I'm sorry.
Where he proposed that he was going to send some information, or that this body, this particular committee would be, the statute calls for a group of individuals that would review the, I don't remember the wording and how he put it, but they would review the books that would go up for any purchased books. And he stated that the body that he was considering, or that the district was considering, was the Academic Advisory Committee. So I just wanted to just confirm that information or further information would come through email to this group.
Well,
if that was the...
Yeah, that's what he said. That's proposed, and what we were saying is that's what you will hear when we workshop this, all three of our policies, which we will workshop on September the 7th. So we did not prepare that on slides or anything because we first wanted...
No, that's right. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
We first wanted to make certain that we workshopped it with the board, got the feedback from the board, and go through, the workshop development to allow us to gauge the feedback from the board, and then adoption, then come back to this group. We felt that it was important, however, because we wanted this group here, we wanted to be a part of that process, that we share with you what the recommendation would be to the board. So we will go to the board with it, allow them to provide us feedback, then we can come back after we gauge the feedback from the board at workshop.
And that is perfectly fine. That's great, and it sounds good to me, but I'm one of those people that want to just make sure, just general consent, was there any objections to? I think it's a phenomenal decision, but I like to be politically correct and make sure that everyone that's on this committee, there's no objections to that,
Oh,
because it
okay, I
is
see what
good,
you're
but I want to
saying.
make sure that everybody on the committee is good with that decision as well. I'm good with it. I know some people that's currently on the committee will be great with it, but I just wanted just a general consent. We don't need to vote on it, but just a general consent that there is no objection to the decision that the staff have made at this time.
You do
And
have
I
a
don't hear
hand
any
up.
objections.
You
And
have
I
Miss,
was just going to say I don't have objections, but I do know Corey was waiting to speak.
okay, yes.
Yeah, I just had a quick hand up. I of course agree with Dr. Diaz. And most everything he said. Quite frankly, I just wanted to know from council if I know there were legal challenges that are pending. Have we joined in any of those? I think we were added to one of them.
You're asking me? Unfortunately, I'm not with the litigation portion of the office. I don't know what we've joined.
Okay, I think we were joined in one of those suits. I just was wondering if we had any information on that.
You mean as a plaintiff or as a defendant?
As a defendant.
I'm aware of one suit that was in the newspaper where we're one of 5 districts that's a defendant.
Okay. We don't,
That's what I'm aware of.
and we're not pursuing it from a plaintiff's perspective, right?
I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
So Charmaine, are you good with that? Are we good with moving on from there?
Absolutely. We're good with moving forward.
Okay. Well, I tell you, so what we will do here, so we've shared with you what we will take to the board, and as indicated, that will go on this September 7th. Thank you, Bruce, and Nolan, for the work that we have done in terms of being ready to take this forward. And then we will come back to this group and share out. For those of you that were not able to watch the meeting on the workshop on the 7th, we will then make certain to update accordingly. So the next part, because we do have some time there to just talk as it pertains to, because I wanted to make certain that we did the legislative pieces, is around the opening of school. Of course, we started this year on last Wednesday, into day 4. And I have to say, it's been a pretty smooth opening. You continue to have, those hurdles that you deal with. All last week, we did our end of day calls, just checking in to see how things were going. Our numbers are, they're fluctuating. We're waiting to see around the 11-day count. I'll let Mr. Turney talk a little bit about that. But, it's no secret. It's just that we're dealing with here in Palm Beach what we're dealing with nationally, which happens to continue to be our teacher shortages, our shortages in bus drivers, shortages in substitutes, and so forth. We have some very strong cadence, I think, around, the hiring aspects, the recruitments, and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's not unique just here to Palm Beach. We wish we had that magic wand. So we're just continuing to work with our schools and our other, community partners and so forth, and trying to fill those vacancies, that are, that we're dealing with on a daily basis. And, with transportation, the buses are going. Right now we're working with some of our ESE, private transports and so forth. Mr. McCormick and the team, we've been working alongside with Mr. Searchwell and those as it pertains to some of those challenges with our private transports. So, we are moving into day 4, starting day 5, but Ed, do you want anything you need to add there? So, it's like I said, is everything perfect? We'll never have everything perfect, but every day we're meeting to look to see where some of those loopholes are and how do we close those gaps. And it's still around the hiring and the shortages of, those groups that I'm mentioning to you. So if you know any phenomenal teachers out there, any bus drivers, those with their CDL license, or those that are looking for work, definitely send them our way if you feel that they will be a great asset here to Team Palm Beach, because we're definitely looking for some great hires. And Mr. Diaz, Dr. Diaz, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'd like to know approximately how many teacher vacancies there are right now for the 22-23 school year.
360? Mr. Attorney said right now we're at about 360. And then, we have to do the 11-day count. The ESSER's positions, and he and I are sitting here talking, is that within that 360, what's encumbering of that, and principals like to remind us, is that last year when we had when we working through our SASB plan, and we created those ESSER positions and so forth, some of those positions are still have remained vacant. We have many schools that have filled them, but what they're trying to do, and we do get it, we understand, is making certain that we have a certified teacher, a teacher that can enhance the instructional pedagogy for our students in front of our students, and then those other pieces around the interventions and so forth around those ESSA positions, we will then come back, revisit. But our priority has to be getting all of our students with a teacher in front of them.
I have a second question regarding teachers. It's been in the news lately that I don't know if it's the legislature or the governor's office. They're allowing a person who is a veteran and has at least 60 semester hours to get a 5-year teaching certificate, provided they pass a subject matter test. In my humble view of 35 years as a teacher educator, that is not an appropriate basis for a permanent certificate, but that's apparently the law here. I'm wondering if the district has hired any of these individuals, or what your view is towards someone presenting those credentials to you.
We've not hired any under that. My understanding, it's a temporary certificate.
But for 5 years.
A long temporary certificate.
A long temporary certificate.
Granted. Yeah, we have not hired anybody under that clause.
Good to hear.
Okay.
Now, I have a question under those same lines. Is there any opportunity for anyone else who may have a bachelor's or a master's degree to have a master's degree, but not necessarily in teaching, but would be interested in teaching? Is there any provisions or any leeway at the district for those individuals who may have, they may have a music degree, they may have a language arts degree, but not necessarily in teaching?
And Ms. Postal, if you run across an individual of such, I would recommend that you send them directly to HR through our certification, and allow them to work directly with certification.
Certification and HR.
Yes, because they would be the best one to help guide them in regards to what they would be eligible for, if any.
Okay.
Because they would definitely need to get those credentials.
Okay. I do know a couple of individuals that are interested. They're currently substitutes right now. Actually, that's the avenue that they went, just to help out.
Okay. Thank
And I
you.
will connect them. Absolutely.
Thank you. And then the last piece that I do need to mention, because we will be doing, speaking with media on tomorrow, I think, regarding it, it's just been getting a little traction in regards to how popular our extended learning programs, our aftercare programs have become. I've met with Mrs. Howell, Kawana Howell, our extended learning director, this afternoon. And our wait list numbers have doubled. Primary reasons, we have many parents that have found the need to where they need to go back to work. And they need an extended aftercare program, because we do go to 6 p.m. And where our aftercare program and the cost financially, when you look at it, it is durable, considering that with these past 3 years where we've seen the inflation in prices, when we visit the grocery stores and many of the other places, they are also seeing it in some of the private daycare facilities or aftercare facilities and so forth. So many families are wanting to transition over to the district's extended learning, our aftercare program, and not being prepared for such influx that requires us to also hire and be prepared with additional staff. So we do have an abundance of wait lists throughout the district at various schools. So we are working with the schools for those that have the wait list, but our primary responsibility is making certain that we are being in compliance and that we have the staff to accommodate all students. So we're working through those, pieces with our families. And looking for ways in terms of how do we expedite and alleviating, the stress, because we hear it, from the family and we sympathize with them. And if they want the students to be with us for the extended period of time, for some of the academic and the social enrichment, we would love to have them. So that's definitely a piece that we're working, that's something that we're working on and towards in the coming days. And also, I do want to remind you, if you've not heard, on September the 28th, we will be bringing back our college fair at the South Florida Fairground. Prior to COVID, there used to be one of our big events. So we will be hosting our college fair for our secondary students at the South Florida Fairground on September the 28th from 6 to 8. And, the colleges and universities, armed forces have really and truly excited signing up. We're just looking forward to engaging our students. And then on October the 18th, we are also bringing back our showcase of schools at the South Florida Fairground as well for our, for our families and the communities. So those are two big events that, you'll start hearing more about.
Picked a good day, October 18th. Two questions that I have. Do you have the number for the extended learning wait list? I know you said it doubled. Did you have a number for that?
I could get that number for you, Ms. Postal, from Mrs. Howell. I'll have Diane to email it to you.
No problem. And then the second thing, we have about 7 minutes left in this meeting. I think it's 7 o'clock, correct?
7:15.
Yes. Oh, 7:15. Oh, we got some time. I just didn't want us to forget that the calendar, if I'm not mistaken, I know DDC, we vote on those. We do need to vote on the calendar. I didn't see that on the agenda, or I may have missed it.
I'll pull it back up. The calendar
The
for our
the
meeting,
year.
it is, if I can pull it back up here, it is attached to the calendar, to the calendar invite.
Absolutely. I saw it. I just didn't see it on the agenda item as a action item because we would have to vote on these dates for the year.
Okay, well, we will go back, and I think, what are these, Diane's, the second Monday? The second Mondays that we've had them in the past. So we've continued with the second Monday, so you all can look to see where we stand. And of course, the first one, like this evening, did not fall necessarily on the second Monday because we always do the meeting in August after the school year begins. And so that's why we felt here on the 15th for tonight. But these are the meeting dates for this academic year.
Any motion to approve the calendar for the year?
I so move.
Randy, I second.
Second.
Second by Randy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think the next item on the agenda, I think you probably hit all of the items. We're at Q&A at this time?
Yes,
Did I
we're
skip
at
over? Yes, we are in Q&A.
We're at Q&A. And then, of course, I think during the Q&A session, I don't know if you want to discuss in regards to our September. Oh, I'm skipping to September. Moving this year right ahead. Our September agenda items, so that we will have an opportune time to work with staff, for the preference of the group.
At this time, the floor is open for any recommendations of agenda topics. And if we could have just a couple of agenda topics that could stretch out, of course, keeping in mind that if there's other priority discussions, I would say preface it this way. If there is anyone who would like to share any agenda topics, please share it. But I also would like to share that given the autonomy, the staff, as well as permission from the committee, if there's other priority topics that are pressing to come before the body, if we can go ahead and also have that little caveat there as well. Because sometimes we have maybe, we may have something on the agenda to talk about, and then there's something that is more pressing to discuss than that particular agenda topic. So I just would like to share, if it's okay, one, share the topics, and two, asking the permission of the body to allow staff to have priority topic items if something should come that is more pressing before the body.
Yeah, I have a
Does that
suggestion.
make sense?
I have a suggestion.
Mhm.
Last year, we had staff give us data on the percentage of highly qualified teachers which were in Title I versus non-Title I schools. And it was roughly twice as likely that you would find highly qualified teachers in non-Title I schools. And then the second piece of data was first, second, and third year teachers, which were twice as likely to be found in Title I schools as in non-Title I schools. So my concern with regard to the teacher shortage is I want to see, once we fill it as best we can, are we filling it with certified teachers? Are we filling it with non-certified teachers? And what is the impact of the teacher shortage, especially on Title I schools? Because shortages typically tend to make inequities worse. And I'd like to see some data with regard to how that is being implemented in the district. And if everybody feels a little bit of pinch, okay. But if certain places are feeling a lot more pinch than others, I'd like to know why.
And back on teachers shortage in Title I schools. And their staff make a note of these requests?
Yes, and it will be reflected in the minutes as well. So Dr. Diaz, are you asking for the data for this upcoming year in regards to?
Right. If we have 360 roughly vacancies, hopefully a month from now, there'll be fewer than 360. But I'd like to know in which schools are those vacancies still present? And are the vacancies roughly 50-50 in Title I versus non-Title I schools? Or are there many more vacancies in Title I schools, which means that we then have to try to backfill those classrooms with substitutes, which means non-continuous instruction for children in Title I schools?
Okay, so that will be from HR. I'll get with HR. So what we're saying is just that on the September 12th meeting, can we get an update on our vacancies, instructional vacancies? Within those instructional vacancies, have it broken down, title versus non-title.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So that's
Laura, I'm sorry.
September 12th. And then also for myself, I made a note to also for September 12th, is that if we could just circle back, because we would have had our board workshop on the 7th. And I think it would be appropriate to come back on the 12th to discuss around the library and media and your role in the feedback from the board.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll be able to share the red lines and the slides and spend more time around that, because that is some important work that you all will be involved in. Do you all agree with that?
There's no objections here. That can actually be a unfinished business as an update. And then the primary business could be on the instructional vacancies.
And Dr. Sheffield, the data that we have on highly qualified teachers and first, second, and third year teachers in Title I versus non-Title I schools is about a year and a half old.
Okay, so you would like to know.
I'd like to get an update on that and see if it's gotten better or worse.
So 0 to 3 years, and then,
Highly qualified.
okay.
What's the proportion of faculty in highly qualified rating in Title I versus non-Title I schools, regardless of level?
Okay, got it.
We have Laura Feldman and then Mr. Corey Smith.
Some of these could be dealt with in a later meeting after September, because I could see that both hearing the presentation and the details as a follow-up would certainly be quite important for the book review process.
Okay.
So Um, but also, and some of this is a little bit of a follow-up, which is, I know that a couple of years ago, there were pilot programs to expand the gifted program, so that there would be better access, more diverse access to the gifted program. So I was hoping we could hear an update for the process um, for identifying students for the gifted program, as well as more information as to enrollment. And then as another topic, um, two more topics. One is if we could have some review of what those standards are or benchmarks are, that go through the discussion of what is family and when is it that pronouns are introduced in terms of grammar to students. I think that would also be helpful to us as we go through book reviews, um, because that does include some form of instruction relating to gender identity on some level. And so I think that could be very useful and helpful to find out. And lastly, I'm hoping to get more of an update, and again, this would be at a future meeting, regarding what AP, ACE, and IB classes are offered at the various high schools. Have there been changes so that there's more equitable access to computer science, math, and physics and chemistry, specifically going into more of those hard sciences, to make sure that we're enabling all of our students to be able to possibly go into the sciences. And also to find out, as a corollary to that, is not just are the classes accessible to students, but also to double check, well, not double check, but to find out how students are performing, what has been placed in, do some schools, some classes have issues with very low pass rates on those various exams. And even though I realize that there is a benefit to taking the class, even if you fail the exam, of course, we would prefer that all of our students are passing those exams. So as part of that is also to find out what's being done to help better prepare students so that we don't have schools with very low pass rates on some of those exams. So I know those were a few topics, but those are what come to mind.
Thank you, Laura. Mr. Smith?
Hey, I hate to pile on, but I'm going to. But quickly, I just wanted to get included in the reports here. I know there are plans that are going on for Old North Tech, Riviera Beach Preparatory Academy, just to include in the information that's given in this committee what the the progress and status of that is, and the one at South Tech as well. I know there were plans in the to redo the buildings at South Tech. So I wanted to kind of get that included in these meetings. So basically North Tech and South Tech.
Dr. Sheffield?
Yes, Mr. Collins.
We can't hear the discussion in the room.
Oh, turn your mic on, Mr. Collins. Is it on?
Is it on?
Is that green light on?
Yeah.
Okay, there it is.
Is the district still dealing with cursive writing? That was something that I was concerned about. Do you know whether or not that's still within the curriculum?
That is still within the curriculum there in third, once they enter third grade, but we can talk more. I can run the curriculum piece.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a suggestion for a future meeting. I would like an update on the current number of dual language programs in the district. And I would like to know the teachers working within that framework, what percentage of them are certified or not. And lastly, what are the plans for the future to increase the number of dual language schools in the district?
Thank you. Anyone else have any addition to the list of topics that can be discussed at the Academic Advisory Committee meetings? I would be remiss if I did not, Rachel, I see your hands. I would be remiss if I did not add some component to parent engagement. Where are we with parent engagement in the district, and how are we working together to bridge the gap between parents, families, and communities? So that is a topic down the line. It could actually be embedded in several other topics that I've heard. But that is a area that I would like us to revisit at some point. There was some conversation. I would love for us to revisit that. Rachel?
Yes. So I heard someone make the subject of having equality within ACE and AP classes across different high schools. One of the things that I think is important for our dyslexic children, which is about 1 in 5, 20%, not every high school has sign language. And a dyslexic child really struggles with learning a foreign language. And I think for equity purposes, it would be great if we could research or look into getting sign languages at every high school so they can fulfill their language requirements, so they, have an equal chance for college and so forth.
Thank you, Rachel.
That could be added to something you guys can look into, or a discussion about equity for all students, for high school classes.
Thank you, Rachel, for that. Any additional topic areas?
Okay.
Hearing none at this time, I will turn this meeting over to the staff for any additional comments, questions, or input.
Okay, well, again, I just thank all of you. I know, it's a lot of information that we just put in front of you, particularly around the legislative updates, around the, those classroom libraries, around library media services, and the role in which we would need you to assist us. And then again, lastly, Charmaine, Diane will email the correspondence from DOE to where we're looking for assistance, and where they're looking for assistance for parents to sit on a work group to help develop the online training program for our library media specialists. And the deadline for that is the 19th. So we'll make sure we get that out. Okay?
And that's September 19th?
Nope, August 19th. August 19th.
I'm sorry, not September, August 19th.
Yeah, August 19th. We received this very late on Friday. It was part of the DOE weekly updates that they sent out. So we just got it, and it's a quick turnaround. So we'll get it out first thing tomorrow morning.
No surprises from the DOE.
And then we will move with the various departments for September to give them adequate time. And then we can then talk in in September. I have the bullet items in terms of some of the discussions, but then we will streamline and finalize, get more granular at our September meeting for exactly what it is for October. But this does help.
Absolutely.
All right. So
thank you so much.
With all that being said, I think that is it from the group here, but I cannot thank you all enough. Looking forward to working with the chair, vice chair, and all of you. And then we will get together. I'll get with the chair, look in regards to those that have look at our roster for those that are here, those that are not in attendance, to what we can decide in terms of moving forward. Because our goal is to have a live, active advisory group this year, because I guess you hear me pleading that I really need the assistance of you all as we walk through these waters, all right? So thank you all, and have a great evening, and we'll see you at our next month's meeting. And some of you I'll see before then, and we'll be talking before then.
Thank you, and with that
Thank you,
said,
Charmaine, and congratulations.
Thank you. With that being said, anyone would like to do the honors of adjourning the meeting?
I'll move for an adjournment. This is Randy.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Meeting adjourned at 7:11.
Wow, thank you.
You're very welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.